This is the Corner Cutter Podcast, episode 40. We're getting up there. Hey, welcome to the Corner Cutter Podcast. Podcasting since 2014, I'm Josh, your host. If this is your first time listening, make sure to hit the subscribe button. That way you'll get every episode every week. And if you don't listen to podcasts that much, then you can go over to YouTube. The channel is Corner Cutter, and I release each episode on there as well. This is the podcast all about cubing and how to improve. Last week, I had an awesome discussion with Will Callan, the NAR holder for 2x2. Hopefully you guys checked that one out. But this week, we have some shoutouts, cubing news, of course, and I also have a few updates. Also, I have a few comments on question of the month a little bit later. So why don't we jump right into cubing news? Cubing news, records, releases, and ratings. It's been a while since I did a full cubing news segment, so let's jump right into it. Starting out with Max Park, this was at SAC Cubing number 4, 2018 in Roseville, California. First round of 4x4. He got the world record average, 21.13, as well as the world record single, 18.42. So he blasted the 4x4 average way down. He cut it down by over a second. And he had a counting 19 single as well. So that's pretty amazing. Final round of 4x4, he had a best single of 19.52. So he's getting lots of sub-20s. Let's see, for 5x5, he got a 37.28 world record single, but his average ended up being 47. But he did get a 45 average in the second round. For 6x6, he got the world record of 124.14. That's the mean. So even though it wasn't faster than the one that got DNF'd the other week, he still broke it again. And he got a 116 single in that mean. Pyramid single was also broken at a competition in China. Yulun Wu got a single of 1.10. So that broke it by 0.09, which is a pretty big jump for Pyramix. They're getting closer to that 1 second mark and are now competing closely with Scube. Really cool scramble, though. I'll have the scramble in the show notes to this episode. And those are on the website, thecornercutterpodcast.com. Quite a few other records as well. 7x7 single, Kevin Hayes got a 157.56. So took that back from Max Park. Jeff Park got a 3x3 blindfolded single, 17.85. Another cool event that got a world record, 3x3 with feet, Daniel Rose Levine got that, 23.54. Mats Falk got a European record for 3x3 average, 6.46. I saw quite a few sub-7 averages on 3x3 recently by some other guys as well. Felix got the Oceania record for 7x7 mean, which is 29.04, so he's getting closer. So some of those records were quite a big jump and pretty amazing. Let's move on to some releases. YJ's MGC 3x3 has been quite the hype. I've heard it's a pretty good cube, and it's only for around 15 or 16 bucks, and it's magnetic as well, so more of a budget magnetic cube. Pretty cool. YJ's coming out with that. YJ also has a couple other pretty interesting releases. They came out with a mini pillow series for 3x3, as well as a 3x3 keychain cube. The two sizes they have so far for the keychain, mini keychains are 4.5 centimeters and 2.0 centimeters. That looks like an interesting cube. Meanwhile, the Mofeng Xiaoxi 3x3 mini-series, their smallest one is 3.0 centimeters. Qi released their Qifa S2-1, that's their budget series. And the Yushin Honglong 3x3M is on pre-order. I really like those mini cubes though. For the ratings part of the show, I thought we would do something similar to the releases. Let's go over the Mofeng Xiaoxi 4.5 centimeter 3x3. Out of the box, being only a $3 cube, the only thing you really have to do is loosen it up. Like other Moyu 3x3s, they usually come pretty tight, but just loosen it up and it performs pretty nicely. I even magnetized mine with 4x2 and 35s, and it's working great. I tried it for one-handed. It's a little on the small side for one-handed, but it's my favorite cube to carry around, and it fits nicely in your pocket. The 50mm version is a little big to have in your pocket, and a regular 3x3 is huge. So this one I like taking on car trips, or just when you're out and about, because it's not bulky and you still can solve it, and it still looks like a regular cube. Or I should say you can still solve it easily. So that wraps up records, releases, and ratings. Okay, let's move on to a new segment of the show where I will be sharing a cubing tip, just maybe a general one, maybe something specific, or maybe just something I've been thinking about recently, cubing related. So this week, I am getting information from a recent thread I made on the speed solving forums. And this is in regards to distractions at WCA competitions. I was thinking, if you're at a competition and let's say one of the fast guys were there, like Felix or Max, and he got a world record, everybody goes crazy, and you're in the middle of your solve. So would it be, or should you get an extra attempt if you're in the middle of your solve, or even if you're in inspection? I was asking what people thought is reasonable. DG Cubes was one of the first to reply. The section of the regulations would probably be Article 11, although it doesn't say anything specifically about world records. He said he's seen many cases where people have gotten extra scrambles because of something like that. And then he said it might be good to add a regulation. Lucas Guerin also replied. He said Article 11, Section A2 says incidents include interference or facility interruptions, e.g. power failure or emergency alarm activation, and that's actually from the regulations. And then another person pointed out when a world record is broken, the rushing over and screaming and stuff is not supposed to happen. 2G says competitors must remain quiet when inside the designated competing area. So this is an interesting topic, and it is good to know that you can get an extra attempt, or try to get an extra attempt, if something like that does happen to you. If you have any thoughts on this, I would love to hear from you about them. My email is feedback@thecornercutterpodcast.com. Let's move on to some TCCP updates. Recently, or I guess it was a week or so ago by now, I was having some issues with my email address, feedback@thecornercutterpodcast.com. That's just basically a redirect to my thecornercutterpodcast@gmail.com email. I didn't know this, but I recently upgraded my website to a paid plan, so it removed ads and gave me a domain and stuff like that. And it broke the redirect email because I had mapped the domain. But I got that all straightened out now. Thank you to you guys who let me know that it wasn't working. I do appreciate that. One thing, if you haven't visited the podcast website before, thecornercutterpodcast.com, please go check it out. Not only will you find the show notes, you can also visit the support page, thecornercutterpodcast.com/support, to help support the show for free. I always appreciate that. I might be changing the theme soon or adding some updates or small upgrades to the site, so keep an eye out for that. And I will let you know on the podcast as well. I have some great guests coming up on some of the upcoming episodes. The debate show I recorded with Jack and Aiden just this past Sunday. It went great. So that will be in next week's episode, and it'll be posted next Monday. That was my first time having 3 people on Skype, so that was a little bit new, but Skype behaved nicely. I've heard some other podcasts where Skype, when 3 or more people on, gives some problems, so I'm thankful for that. Also, some upcoming interviews will be with someone from the WRC, as well as an interview with Ian Scheffler, who wrote the book Cracking the Cube. So if you have any questions for the WRC or for Ian, please send them in, feedback at thecornercutterpodcast.com. And don't wait too long, because I will be recording those interviews very soon. Hey, why don't we do a few shout-outs now? Cosmo emailed in. First off, he thanked me for giving him a shout-out the other week. I read his Apple Podcast review. And then he said, "I love your podcast and keep up the good work. Also, I have a question for the podcast." Okay, I always love your questions. If you could choose between a blindfold that would make you be able to see the cube at all times, or a blindfold that could tell you what times you're going to get for all future solves, which one would you choose? Well, I actually wear the first blindfold all the time. Well, not really, but I'm not sure if you're talking specifically for blind solving. That would be pretty cool. I don't really like the blindfold that could tell you the times for your future solves. I really like the anticipation and excitement of solving and not knowing what you're going to get, because you don't know if you're going to get a PLL skip or what else is going to happen during the solve. So I would have to go with the first one. Runner Bear Cuber commented on the best and budget cubes of 2018 YouTube video of the podcast. He said, "Very informative. I would have liked to see stuff for with feet." So Runner Bear Cuber, I did some research, and a few people were saying the 68mm big sail from Chi worked pretty well. The magnetic version works better. And then 2 people also said the Volk M, or the Volk M stickerless, is amazing for feet. It seems to have the best stability and control for feet solving. And one other person said they use the Air. So that's just a quick follow-up from episode 38. I hope you guys learned something. Final thing for this week, question of the month. Again, the question is, what event or cube have you been wanting to learn, and why haven't you started? Remember, I need your responses by June 25th, and I've gotten quite a few already, so thank you guys. I've gotten them quite a few different ways as well. One in the comments to one of my episodes, some in email, and I've gotten one through the SpeakPipe messaging system. So that's how I would prefer them. So thank you to Jack who did it on there. I'll read all you guys' other ones as well. So if you want to give your response, go to thecornercutterpodcast.com/feedback and click on the SpeakPipe link and record your response there. So next week's episode is with Jack and Aiden. They will be debating whether you should be color neutral on 3x3 and should any events be added to the WCA or even taken away. We discussed that as well. So let's take this episode back to the scrambling table and come back next week for episode 41 of the Corner Cutter Podcast.